Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Business of Meeting podcast. And today I am delighted to speak with an icon in our industry. She has a tremendous career as an entrepreneur, as now the chief strategist at Freeman. She has been awarded numerous recognition, Educator of the Year by IAEE, Woman of Achievement. She's writing for PCMA Convention. She's a speaker. She's a writer. She's a leader. She has so much to share with us today. Kimberly Hardcastle, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to be here and looking forward to our conversation.
Absolutely, me too. And actually, I asked you after what you present at WEC, which was extremely interesting, and we're going to get to that. But first of all, if you can share about your journey, I see on your LinkedIn that you study not far from where I live in Florida. And what is your journey and how did you get into our industry?
Sure. I'm going to give you the condensed version of it. So, I majored in Spanish with emphasis in business, thinking I would live in Miami and facilitate international trade. And I met my husband, and everything changed. He was in the military. So, we lived in Maine for 3 years and then Scotland for 3 years. So, the Spanish degree did not come in very handy in either of those places. So I doubled down on business, the marketing side of it. I was in the oil and gas industry for a while. And then when I came to Southern California, I ended up working at an agency called MDG. The founder hired me. We specialized in marketing and promoting trade shows. I fell in love with it, so much so that as she started talking about retirement, I started talking about how am I going to buy this business from her. I ended up convincing a client, Vinny Polito, who now leads CISO, to invest with me. So we bought the agency together, owned it for 8 years from 20, let's see, what year was it? 2012. No, I think it was, anyway, we owned it for 8 years. The timing sometimes escapes me because I stayed on through an earnout period a little bit after that before becoming chief strategist at Freeman. And through the years of owning MDG, I actually grew the agency by a factor of 20. So I'll talk about it. Instead of revenue employees, I went from 11 to we're now up to about 130 employees. We went from one office in Southern California to an office in DC, Chicago. And then before transitioning out, we actually purchased a company called Tag Digital out of the UK. So it was an exciting ride. So fun. I love this industry. About a year ago, I decided to transition into this new role as chief strategist at Freeman.
Awesome. So I have one question at the beginning and one question at the end of that part of
Okay.
your career. So I study business just like you. And the first time I had my first invoice to put it in the software, I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? So you study business, you study how you evaluate companies, earn out, things like that. How is it when you actually have to put that into practice and really invest and having those all those questions? Because I know some of the people listening have been through that and are thinking as well about doing that. What is the mindset? What is the right approach when you're looking at investing in a business and becoming the shareholder?
Sure. So I think for me, the thing that was so attractive about buying MDG, the previous owner had basically run it as a lifestyle business. So she purposely kept it very small. She didn't want to travel. She didn't want to work long hours, that sort of thing. But we had an amazing reputation and so much potential in this niche. And so I felt like I bought it at a time where we had trust, a great reputation, but we had not even begun to scratch the surface of what was possible. And that's why that growth was so quick in those preceding years of owning the business. We really focused on expanding into the East Coast, international, going beyond just trade shows, helping associations do membership marketing, that sort of thing. So I've only done it once in terms of selling a business. I've bought once with Tag, and the circumstance was very unique. But I think it was just seeing the potential and knowing what I could add to it and knowing how we could grow it into something much bigger than what it was.
Awesome. And then fast forward the end of that period, how is it to be your own boss for so many years, I think 24 years, and then going to a large organization, which obviously is the largest in our industry. But what is it for you as a human being, as a leader, to be your own boss and then to go into a large organization?
So I will tell you very honestly that I'm still trying to figure it out. It's been a year at this role within Freeman, and I am used to moving very quickly. Our business was very agile. If I saw a change we needed to make, I could get all the pieces in place to make it. So I'm still learning how to be effective within a large organization. It is absolutely an adjustment.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Kimberly, you had an amazing presentation that I had the opportunity to listen to at MPI WEC. Can you tell us a little bit about what is changing now in the industry? I know you have some slide about the gap between what people do and what attendees expect. What is something that it's considered normal in the past, but is not working anymore today? Can you share a little bit more information on that?
Sure. And just for the listeners who weren't in that session, the premise of it was by design or by default, and sort of what types of leadership changes and choices are shaping what's coming next. And I think that, we're in this period of rapid change, especially with AI adoption, and too many organizations in our space, I think, are still kind of operating in default mode, which in reality is easy to do in our space. I think it's the cyclical nature of the event and knowing we just have one chance to get it right if we have an annual meeting. But I think that, like I said, things are changing a little too fast, and that we have to challenge some of our assumptions, and we have to think differently, and we have to make sure that we are evolving our events so that they're relevant tomorrow. So I think like I can give one example of something I think that's changing in our industry, and that is how attendees are showing up. Like in the past, I think typically what they did is they came to a trade show. I'll talk about trade shows specifically. Walked up and down the aisles. If something caught their interest, they would stop, ask questions of the exhibitor, learn more about it. And trade show floors were really a place of discovery. And discovery still happens. Like, I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but we're finding that attendees, buyers in particular, are coming to trade shows having done a tremendous amount of research in advance. So
Hmm.
the role that the trade show floor is playing in the buying process, while it's still critically important, it's important at a different phase. It's really in that sort of consideration phase to conversion phase where, they might already know about the company and they're there to compare options, to actually get their hands on something, to talk to a subject matter expert, to try it out. So it's less about discovery and it's more about using the trade show floor, the exhibitors to answer, like, is this product right for me? Is it right for my company, my timeline, etc.?
Understood. So I know you're doing a lot of work on attendees acquisition and retention. To your point, people might be there just to discover, but they've done a lot of research before. Nevertheless, the touch point, the in person, is something extremely powerful when it comes to a relationship with your customer. What is your advice for somebody who's exhibiting in terms of attendee acquisition and attendee retention using the trade show as a vehicle?
So I would say I'll answer it in two different ways. One, for the trade show organizer, I talked a lot in the session, I talk a lot in general about the changing dynamics of the workforce. So by the end of 2030, 75% of our workforce are going to be millennials and Gen Z. So they are doing more research in advance, as I mentioned, but they're also learning about events, experiences, companies, et cetera, in different ways. And I think a lot of legacy event marketers have relied too heavily on email in our industry. And it's critically important that we start using other channels more innovatively. One of the things I'm talking about a lot right now is answer engine optimization, ensuring event websites are optimized to show up in answers that search engines are providing in relation to queries. So I think that's important. There's a new feature that was just announced at Cannes Lion on LinkedIn called collaborative posts. I think that will be important
Mm,
for event organizers to help amplify their messaging. So, thinking beyond email, I think is key for organizers. For exhibitors, I mean, the biggest pieces of advice I typically have for them is to make sure you're bringing the right people to your booth, that you are staffing not just with the outgoing salespeople that draw people into your booth, but that you also have the subject matter experts there that can answer
right.
the really difficult questions and that you provide hands-on experiences. So Freeman research has shown that attendees get very frustrated at booths when exhibitors just want to scan their badge and follow up later, which sort of negates what face-to-face is for. They want the hands-on experience. So that would be my advice both to organizers and to exhibitors.
Absolutely. In one of your slides, I remember you talking about what's in now. It's about the trust
Uh-huh.
and building the trust. How do you do that? And do you do that only at the moment of there's a face to face, or is it something that is more along the way and always coming back to the relationship between the vendors and the clients?
Yeah, again, I mean, I think like in terms of organizers, what I'm recommending as one way of building trust is to make sure that the messaging that you're putting out to the world about your event is anchored in the reality of today. And what I mean by that, I think a lot of times event organizers default to this is the biggest event, this is the most important, here's how many sessions, here's how many net square feet, what have you, but we're not always saying, like, here are the issues that are impacting our industry right now. And I think sometimes we sound generic and a little bit tone deaf. So, like, instead of saying, come here to meet suppliers, say something like, meet suppliers that are helping companies respond to new regulations or rising costs, shifting customer expectations. Like, I think there's ways you can use timeless value propositions to tap into FOMO and build trust, like you said, by saying, we're paying attention, we understand what's changing in your world, and we're evolving with you. And that is especially important right now when audiences are looking for relevance. And then in terms of exhibitors, it's just what I was saying, have those hands-on opportunities and have those subject matter experts in your booth, because those are ways that you're going to build trust
Mhm.
with the audience.
One thing, to be honest, when it comes to trust and LinkedIn, you were maybe what they present at Cannes Lions that you were mentioning about collaborative posts is the solution. But it seems to me that the last months, it's almost an AI who's talking to another AI. If I
Right.
make a post, the only way I'm using AI is to have real English, because obviously I'm not English native. But I have the feeling that some of the comments I had on my post are just AI generated, which it's annoying to a point that sometimes I don't want to answer. But we know that the algorithm value the fact that there is exchange. So, what is the your view about all this LinkedIn approach, the AI in the meantime, but also the authenticity and building the trust?
Yeah, I mean, there is conversation that I don't know about, like, does AI threaten live events? And I actually do think that it makes being together more valuable for all the reasons you just said. I feel like we don't know if we're talking to a real person or a robot. We don't know if that video that we're watching is real or not. And then we're also living in this world where we have unlimited information and unlimited content at our fingertips. So I can ask AI, like, to teach me something or summarize this PowerPoint deck or create a learning plan for me or whatever. And so I think that organizers, when we think about our events, our trade shows or our conferences or whatever, we have to really go in on answering the question, like, what can my event give attendees that they can't get by sitting at their desk? And the answer is experience, and it's human connection, and it's serendipity, and it's access, and it's trust, and it's the ability that an attendee has to see a product and to touch it and to ask an expert a question and for an attendee to sit next to somebody at a session and hear how they're solving a shared problem. And you can understand the nuance of an industry by walking a trade show floor and listening to the conversations that happen around you. And I just think, like, I guess ironically, like, the more connected and AI enabled our lives become, the more premium those human experiences become.
150% agree.
I know. Can you tell I'm passionate about that one?
It's good. And it's very good for our industry, by the way.
I think so too.
And you mentioned that in by 2030, the majority of the workforce will be composed of Millennium and Gen Z. Now, I remember one of your posts on LinkedIn, and thanks to you, is the first time I saw a commencement speech when the speaker was as soon as they start talking about AI, they were booed
Yeah.
by the audience, and it was like, oh my God, what is going on?
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
Well, it's so interesting because, and I think I mentioned this in my LinkedIn post, like I hadn't even heard about that yet, but I was at my son, he just graduated from university in May, and we were having a nice graduation dinner with his girlfriend and his girlfriend's family. And the girlfriend's dad, who's this very successful software entrepreneur, started talking about the importance of becoming proficient in AI. And I just looked around at the young people at the table and saw their eyes glazing over and their body language shifting. And I was like, what's happening here? And that's when I started studying young people's attitudes towards AI. And basically, what I found is that there is a lot of nuance. They're worried that AI is going to replace sort of the entry level jobs, that sort of thing. And also, I don't think that we are always talking about sort of the nuance in how to use AI in a way that doesn't stifle creativity and original thought, but increases productivity and that sort of thing. And I would say too, I think the important thing is in relation to this next gen event goer conversation is that it isn't exclusively about age. And I think the reality is that technology has changed all of us. So we are all now used to things being intuitive and frictionless and personalized. And remember when we used to have those like 200-page directories at or programs or whatever at trade shows? Like, I don't think people want to dig through those anymore to figure out like what exhibit they should visit or whatever. Like, we all sort of want help curating our experiences, but Gen Z definitely amplifies those expectations, and they are coming into events with different comfort levels, or in many cases, like building relationships face to face. And I think that is a huge opportunity in events. And I think that sometimes we assume younger generations are less interested in having in-person events because they're digital natives. But the opposite is true. Like what I presented at the session you were at, Eric, was that, they see events as a place to build professional relevance and
Mhm.
to develop confidence and interpersonal skills and form the kinds of relationships that you can't create on screen.
You were talking about directory. I remember the first time I went to my first EIBTM. I'm dating myself. And I came back with all those brochures. And then at the airport, I see everyone with no brochures. So they asked it to be sent. They look at me and said, first timer? I said, okay, I got the message next time.
Right.
I won't, I
That's
won't carrying it.
that's funny.
Um, you're talking about the younger generation going to live events and conference and trade show. I look at my third daughter. She's 16, and I see her on her phone. And I said, what are you doing? And she said, I'm speaking with my friends, Dad. I said, no, you're not speaking, you're texting. They know I'm speaking with my friend.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's gonna be when actually they're in real life. Those soft skills about get interacting with people, something that you would train your workforce, you would train people in the different organization.
So, one of the things that I spoke a little bit about and I write about on LinkedIn often is remote work, and that there is research showing that the younger generations are feeling less connected and more isolated from others within their company or their career. And I do think that live events, as I was mentioning, are a really good place to sort of meet with colleagues, to meet with industry professionals, to find mentors, etc., to practice some of those skills that we may have had more natural practice at because we had to have face-to-face conversations. We weren't texting. I don't want to like say you're the same age as me, but I would assume, are you a Gen Xer?
What is Jenny? I'm born in 66, so
Yeah, yeah, you're
yeah.
an Xer. Yeah.
I know I'm not a boomer. I after Gen X, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, Gen X. So, we grew up having to have more of these face-to-face conversations. But I don't know, like, how are your daughters? Because my son is Gen Z as well, but he also does very well in face-to-face conversations. And I don't know if that's a product of his education, always having to give
I'm sure it is.
and that sort of thing. But like, are your daughters like, they're probably fine, aren't they? Like speaking to real life humans when they have to.
They're very fine, and actually, it's thanks to their mother first, because she's very extrovert. Believe it or not, I'm a recovering introvert, but I see them in context. We always took them with us. They know how to get conversation with adults, but it's not necessarily the case that I see with their friends. So I always wonder that what is going to happen in those relationships. But always optimistic. And again, coming back to that reaction about I still cannot comprehend the fact that it's progress. It's the society we lived in, and it's almost rejecting that. So I was shocked, and it was not one; it was several.
That
That
we're booing. Yeah, I know.
So I don't know. We'll see about that. When it comes to the experience that you have, I know one of your slide was talking about personal experiences. So you're going to the same conference, the same trade show. How can you design personal experiences when you have thousands of attendees at the conference?
Yeah, I mean, I think for so long when we talked about personalization and events, like as far as we ever got was like putting somebody's first name in an email, like which is not really personalization, but now we're starting to talk about personalization in the right way, which is basically about helping somebody get more value from a very like complex, robust experience because you're exactly right. Like you and I could attend the exact same conference, but we could have completely different objectives. So you might be there like because you need to find a new technology partner or something. I might be there because I need education. I might be there because I need to strengthen my professional network, but we're all going to the same event, but now that the event organizer has more data and better technology than they've ever had, and including AI, you and I should be able to create curated journeys that meet both of our needs. So if we both put like what we're trying to accomplish into some sort of an app or technology solution, that could mean we get different sessions recommended to us, might
Okay.
be introductions, we might get different exhibitors recommended to us, we might get different marketing, that sort of thing. And I do want to just clarify, I don't think that every moment at an event has to be programmed. Like I do still believe in the power of serendipity, and I think that's a benefit of trade shows. But I think that kind of going back to the 200-page program, like we have to stop expecting that attendees are going to do all the work of finding the value that we build for them.
Understood. So it's if I understand you well, it's thanks to the data. being able to understand individually their expectation, their needs, and then designing an agenda that is fitting their specific needs.
Correct. And I think it's more than because we've had tracks in the past. Like you can say, I'm a world famous podcast host, and I can say I'm a strategist at Freeman, and it could recommend slightly different things. But now we're at a level where I can say I'm trying to achieve this very specific objective, and that we should have curated recommendations based on that, not just like job title or company type.
Now, I just want to switch to small business owners. So you've been one, although when I hear small business in America compared to Belgium, I always laugh because I think the definition of the SBA, it's up to $150 million of revenue. That's a small business. So, okay,
Right. Yeah.
interesting. What trends do you see in the market? Because I remember a few years ago, and seems to be going there. The SBA predicted that there will be in 2027, so next year, there will be more 1099 freelancers, gig economy than W-2s. Is this something that you see? And if yes, what is your advice for someone who has their own business?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a real opportunity, like, and this might be a hot take, but going back to attracting Gen Z and millennial talent, I look at my own son and he's doing a summer internship right now, but he's really only looking at face-to-face opportunities right now. And I think that a lot of young professionals do want the benefits that come with being in an office. They want connection with their peers. They want in the moment mentorship opportunities. They want culture. They want the ability to to have a network, to make friends, those sort of things. The things that those of us who are at different points in our career gladly exchanged for the convenience of working at home. But I think if I were starting a small business right now, I would lean into having physical office space. And I know that's a hot take, but I think attracting the best next gen talent, that's what it's going to take.
Again, I completely agree with you, but the serendipity of the conversation that you have in person, it doesn't happen on Zoom, on
Right.
Teams or Google Meet. It's really because you are in person. Do you see as well in the market a trend to have more outsourcing than insourcing from organization?
It's an interesting question because I feel like the pendulum always swings back and forth. Like, as an agency that clients would call for when they wanted to outsource things, like that was always, the way that we wanted to see the pendulum swinging.
Mhm.
In terms of event marketing, I still see it going that way. And the reason why is because marketing has gotten so much more sophisticated than it used to be. It is largely data driven. A lot of it requires very sophisticated knowledge of digital platforms, like being able to aggregate ad buys, those sorts of things. They're harder to do, especially for our association clients that may only have one large event and a few small events per year. So being able to hire specialists in digital marketing that understand the latest algorithms and retargeting and AEO and all the things, like it's not necessarily realistic. MDG, I still say we, sometimes I'm still connected to it, but they have a team that specializes in international attendee acquisition. They have a team that just specializes in social media. And I
Mhm.
think as the tools get more complex and sophisticated, we see more things being outsourced to specialists.
Great, thank you. You just mentioned AEO. That's to me, I hope that all the different LLMs are going also to recognize more the authentic content because now the goal is throw out content and content and content so that the LLMs will rank you higher, whatever the content, not even thinking further. Again, as a small business, what is your advice when because you have to do everything and obviously building a small team, where are the priorities? Let's say that you are advising me it's July 2026. What should I be focusing on until the end of this year?
So I would say, as somebody that ran a small business, I mean, it's hard to to generalize a statement that works for everyone. When I was running MDG, for example, my focus was really on business development. And I had an amazing team that could focus on the operations piece of it. There's my successor at MDG. Her strength is really internal leadership, culture building, leadership and talent development, building people's strengths. So she has somebody else that's focusing on business development. And so I think that the answer, what should a leader be focusing on, like, there's no one answer that's right for everyone. Lean into your strengths and find really strong people that can do the other things for you to maximize the success of the business. But in terms of, like, I guess general advice is just keep an eye on the next generation. As I said previously, they're going to be 75% of the workforce by 2030. So understanding how they discover new products, new businesses, trade shows, conferences, experience, it's very different. Meet them where they are and figure out how to communicate with them very authentically. But the purely promotional play of the past is over.
I agree. And I love what you said about focusing on your strength. That's always an example I'm sharing with the people I'm helping. It's my first 2 years as a business owner. It was like my two first clients were J&J and Café de Colombia. And I said, those are my clients. It's my brand. Nobody does it better. And I was trying to do everything myself. And quite frankly, driving 150 miles an hour into a wall until I start putting processes, hire more people. So focusing on what you do best is great.
I think that is so smart, and that a lot of small business owners don't figure that out. And that's why they say small businesses is figuring out what processes you need to put in place that give you the ability to scale. And I think so many small agencies remain small because as soon as the owner starts stepping away to run the business, the level of service to the client starts to go down. But when you hire the right people and you have the right systems and processes in place and you're scaling with intention, that's really what's required for growth.
Thank you. I have two last questions, but before that, I have another topic that I want to share with you and have your opinion on. I
Okay.
read more and more that, between brackets, finally, the private equities are looking at our industry, which was
Yeah.
not the case in the past. Is it a trend? Is it just now? What's your take on it? And again, when it comes to having your own business, what you should be building for in the future.
It's definitely a trend, and to me, it makes perfect sense. I think that people who are following trends see that with the proliferation of AI, as we were talking about earlier, these face-to-face experiences are becoming more and more treasured and valued and important. And I think private investors are seeing that. So it absolutely is a trend. I think that my wish for the industry is that when private equity is acquiring businesses, that they retain the core of what makes them special. I think at the end of the day, we are serving communities, and we're serving communities that expect authenticity. They want to trust us. They want to have a positive experience, and they want to understand that the people running their event care about them and are connected to the space and the community that they're serving. And I think it's important as we start to get infusion of private equity money that we keep what makes our event special, which is that focus on our communities. And that might be a little Pollyanna-ish, but that's my wish for our space.
Hey, hey, join the club. Absolutely. When you look at our industry, and I look at Anthropic, I look at Apple starting to hire now a lot of people for their events department. I remember the different crises that we went through in our industry. And there's
Mhm.
a trend. You need to focus on people. We're hiring more people, and then things change. Where do you see our industry going in the next 3 years?
It's a good question. I mean, I see because of all the things we've been talking about today, the rise of AI, the importance of human experiences, I see that will continue to grow. I also think because of the rise of AI, we will be doing more with less. I think we're going to realize a lot of efficiencies that come with AI. I think our event experiences are going to get better because we are going to be able to achieve that level of personalization that I talked about earlier with new forms of AI enhanced technology that allow attendees to curate very customized experiences. I think the one thing our industry hasn't made great strides on just yet, for the most part, is keeping our communities engaged between the days of our shows. So that's sort of what I would like to see. And again, I think the data is there. I think we have the tools to be able to use it. I just don't think we've fully maximized that opportunity yet.
Wonderful. Thank you. And my last question for today, and again, thank you so much for taking the time. When we meet in 1 year with a bottle of champagne, what are we going to celebrate?
We are going to celebrate a wonderful year of events, new technology that allows personalization to create better event experiences. Just being in a thriving industry, how smart we were to make our careers out of face to face in the day of AI and always on technology.
Absolutely. Kimberly Hardcastle, thank you so much. And I strongly encourage everyone listening to follow you on LinkedIn. A lot of great insight. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you, Eric. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to the Business of Meeting podcast. I hope you found today's episode valuable. If you enjoyed the show, the most important thing you can do is leave a review and share it with your colleagues. It really helps spread the word. I truly appreciate your support. And if you're ready to take your business to the next level, don't forget to visit eventbusinessformula.com to learn more about how we are helping even business owners like you. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.